Please remain standing. Please be seated. The government may call its next witness. Thank you, Your Honor. The government calls Vincent Winfield. Do you solemnly state the testimony you shall give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Please have a seat. Please have a seat, and please state and spell your full name for the record. Vincent Winfield, Vincent Winfield. Vincent Winfield, called as a witness by and on behalf of the government, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Could you bring and try to speak into the microphone? Thank you. Mr. Winfield, ask you to try to keep your voice up. Mr. Winfield, I see you're wearing prison clothes. Where are you right now? In federal custody. Where are you in federal custody? A private facility in Queens. And what's the private facility in Queens you're in custody in? GEO. And is that a federal prison? Yes. Have you been convicted of federal crimes? Yes. Can you tell the jury some of the crimes that you've been convicted of? Racketeering, narcotics, racketeering, 2 counts of attempted murder, unlawful use of a firearm, and felony possession. All right, if you could keep your voice up, kind of come close to the microphone. Was there a particular person who you committed these crimes for? Yes. Who was that person? Ronald Herron. Do you see Mr. Herron in the courtroom here today? Yes. Could you please identify him to the jury by pointing out a piece of clothing that he's wearing? Yellow tie, blue shirt, glasses. Let the record indicate that the witness has identified the defendant. When you say you committed those crimes for Mr. Herron, who was Mr. Herron to you? He was a friend and my big homie. When you say he was your big homie, what do you mean by that? He was above me in rank and bloods. Was he also your boss? Yes. Was he your boss in the narcotics trafficking trade in the Gowanus and Wyckoff projects for a long time? Yes. Where are you from? Brooklyn. Where'd you grow up? Gowanus. Was there a particular building that you grew up in within the Gowanus? Yes, 198 Bond Street. Why were you living in 198 Bond Street? Living with my grandmother. Do you have another part of Brooklyn that you grew up in? Yes. What was that? Fort Greene projects. Why were you living at Fort Greene sometimes? Because my mother lives over there. When did you first start dealing drugs? Around 13. And what year was that approximately? 1999. And at some point did you start selling drugs for the defendant? Yes. And when did you first sell drugs for the defendant? Around that time. And where did you sell? 198. Did you do it a lot? No. Do you know someone named Feo? Yes. Was he selling for raw at that time? Yes. Where was he selling? 198. And at that time, were there other people selling drugs in 198 Bond Street? Yes. Who else? Darnell, Eric, that's basically all I remember. At that time, you're 13 years old, right? Yes. Do you know a lot about Mr. Herron's operations? No. Where were you in school when you were 13? 265 Bed-Stuy. And at some point, did you get in trouble? Yes. I'm going to ask you something. Back then, before you started hanging around with Ra, did you know about him? Yes. What did you know about him? Objection. Sustained. In 1999, were you in a gang? Yes. What gang were you in? Blood. And were you in a particular set in the Bloods? Yes. What set was that? Turn Pyru. When you say you turned Pyru, what do you mean by that? That's a blood set that was in the Bronx. That was a gang I came under. How did you become a member of the Pyru Bloods? I had a fight with somebody my age that turned Pyru. That was also Pyru. Can you explain to the jury what a set is within the Bloods? It's a set. Bloods is Bloods, and you got different sets under them. Can you change sets within the Bloods? Yes. At a certain point, did you change your set within the Bloods? Yes. Why is it that you changed your set? Because I turned Pyru. That's when people from the Bronx knew I was from Gowanus. Gowanus was like the home base of Mad Dog. Being that I'm from Gowanus, I turned Mad Dog, a set I was basically raised on. You said the term Mad Dog. What are the Mad Dogs? Mad Dogs is a set under Bloods. And you said something about the Mad Dog's relationship to the Gowanus. Can you explain that a little further? It was like the hometown. Gowanus is like the hometown for Mad Dog. All right, who brought you into the Mad Dogs? Ra. Can you tell the jury a little bit about how that happened? Came to Gowanus claiming Pyru. Nobody was really feeling it. I'm from Gowanus, like I said. Basically just repping my hood, repping the neighborhood I'm from, so... Sorry, go on. It wasn't feeling that, so basically you go and rep the set you from, the area you from, you go and be Mad Dog. At a certain point after you became Mad Dog, did you get into trouble? Yes. What happened to you? My mother found some crack in my pocket and sent me out to the Bronx. I'm sorry, go on. And sent me back out to the Bronx. When you went up to the Bronx, where did you go? 175 East Tremont. And when you got up to the Bronx, did you stay out of trouble? No. What did you do? I kept getting in trouble, selling weed for people, basically it. And ultimately, did you get arrested for some of the things you were doing out there? Yes. What did you get arrested for? Throwing me and my little cousins was throwing bricks off the Cross Bronx Expressway and I got caught. What happened? I went to Spofford. What do you mean by that? Juvenile hall. I got arrested, went to juvenile hall. Were you prosecuted? Yes. How old were you? 14. Did you behave when you got to Spofford? No. You got into trouble? Yes. What sort of things did you do at Spofford? Fought a lot. In June of 2001, were you at Spofford or were you home? I was home. And when you say you were home, where were you? In Gowanus and Fort Greene. Do you recall a time when a person was killed in 198 Bond Street in June of 2001? Yes. And what were you doing that day? Playing basketball in Little Park with my godbrothers. At some point, did you leave playing basketball? Yes, went upstairs. Where do you go? Upstairs to my grandmother's house. On the way from playing ball, who do you see outside that day? Saw Ra and Darnell. When you say Ra, are you talking about the defendant? Yes. And when you went up to your apartment, at some point, did you hear something? Yes. What'd you hear? Shots. And did you later learn that someone had been killed? Yes. Objection. Sustained. At some point, did you end up back in Spofford? Yes. You were getting in trouble a bunch when you were younger, is that correct? Yes. And you kept on getting in trouble? Yes. How's you end up back in Spofford, do you know? Call it revocating. I wasn't going to the mandatory programs they gave me to and they locked me back up. And how long were you locked up, do you remember? No. At a certain point, did you come home? Yes. And when was it that you came home? 2003. And when you came home, where'd you go to? Back to Gowanus. You went back to Gowanus? Yes. When you came back to Gowanus, was the defendant in the Gowanus? No. Did you have an understanding of where he was? Yes. What was your understanding? That he was locked up. And do you know what he was locked up for? Rumors. Objection. Sustained. How about Feo? Was he in Gowanus at the time? No. Do you know whether he was locked up? Yes. In 2003, how old were you? 16. And when you got back out on the street in 2003, what is it that you did for a living? Did you go to school? No. Did you go out and sell drugs? Yes. All right, tell the jury a little bit about how you were selling drugs in 2003. My grandmother was a crackhead. She introduced me to two people, and I wound up messing with them, and I started selling drugs for them. What are their names? Cottrell and Pretty. How were you selling for them? Just gave me a couple bundles or $1,000 worth, and I sell them, give them the profit back, keep a couple dollars for myself. Tell the jury again, how did you meet Cottrell and Pretty? My grandmother was a crackhead. She introduced us in the building. She knew what I wanted to do. When you were selling for Cottrell and Pretty, where were you selling? Which buildings? In 198. And did you have access or were you carrying a gun? I had access to, but I wasn't carrying. What kind of gun was that? 32. How would you have access to that gun? Cottrell and Pretty had it, or sometimes once in a while they would leave it in a mailbox that was always open or in his house. Were there other people selling the iguanas at that time? Yes. And let me ask you this. Why isn't it that you just sold for yourself when you came out and you were 16 iguanas? I didn't know where to get crack from like that. I'm still fairly young, just came home, had nothing, basically it. Let me ask you more questions about that. You didn't know where to get crack from? What do you mean by that? As far as grams, ounces, whatever, like I didn't know where to get it from. What's a connect? Somebody that I can go to and get something. Go to get what? Crack, guns, whatever I'm looking for. All right, what's the importance of having a connect when you're selling drugs? It's good to have a good connect, get better prices on things. When you were selling in 2003 for Cottrell and Pretty, who were the major crack dealers in the iguanas at the time? Bam, Shay, Crom. They was basically out there like that. Bam, Shay, and Crom? Yeah. Who are those people? Bam and Crom is brothers. They was selling drugs in iguanas. At a certain point while you were on the street, did Bam or Crom get arrested? Bam did. I think Crom was already locked up. Do you know what he was arrested for? Yes, drugs. Now, at some point, was Crom in a gang? Yes. What gang was Crom in? From my understanding, he was Mad Dog too. At some point, did you get locked up again? Yes. What did you get locked up for again? Armed robbery. And how did you come to find yourself involved in an armed robbery? Coming from Smith Street one night, people got into an altercation. I was with Cottrell and a couple of people from the neighborhood. Cottrell was getting into an altercation with somebody. I had the .32 on me. I went up to that person, hit him with it, and robbed him while Cottrell was still getting into it. What did you take from the guy? Wallet, phone, I can't remember. I'm sorry, Mr. Winfield, if you could. I said I think his wallet, his phone, probably a couple articles, items. I don't really remember. I think it would be helpful if you actually lean forward while you're talking. All right. And just say that again. What did you take from him? His wallet and his phone. What happened? I got arrested. Okay, how did you come to get arrested? I went back to get Cottrell because Cottrell was still a little drunk and he wasn't running fast enough. So I went back to get him, thinking we'd go and get back to the iguana safely. Police pulled up right in front of us and I got locked up. All right, and when you say you got locked up, did you get charged with a crime? Yes. What did you get charged with exactly? Armed robbery. Ultimately, did you plead guilty to that crime? Yes. Were you sentenced? Yes. What was your sentence? 5 years. And when you say 5 years, was it 5 years straight or 1 to 5? 5 flat, 5 years post-release. Now, prior to that robbery, had you robbed other people? Yes. How had you robbed other people? Robbed somebody with a razor, sometimes other guns. And when you were first arrested, did you get put in jail? Yes. Where'd you get put in jail? On Rikers Island. At a certain point, did you transfer to a different part of the New York correctional facilities? Yes, after I got sentenced. Got sent to where? After I got sentenced. Where'd you go? Went upstate. Now, when you got to jail, did you start spending time with other Bloods? Yes. What do you mean by that? I got acquainted with other Bloods after I went to the box. How did you get acquainted with other Bloods when you went to the box? I was there. People come. First thing they really ask, you new to the box, wherever you at, they want to know if you gangbanging. I told them yes, I was a Blood. At a certain point, did you learn more information about the Bloods? Yes. And what are the sort of things that you learned about the Bloods while you were in state prison? Objection. Overruled. You may answer. Repeat the question, please. What are the sorts of things that you learned about the Bloods while you were in state prison? Codes, lineups, lingo, ways to talk. Codes, lineup, lingo, and ways to talk? What's a code within the Bloods? What do you mean? What are you talking about codes? What are codes? That's, like I just said, like lineup, called lingo, like ways to talk when detectives or COs or other people's not Blood are listening, how to communicate with other Bloods without everybody in our business and knowing what we're talking about. Okay, so the codes and the lingo are so other people can't understand what you're talking about when you're talking to other Bloods? Yes. And you said something, a lineup. What's a lineup? Line up, Mad Dog. It's a lineup, like a chain of command. And how does the chain of command work within the Bloods? Like, got different ranks? You have different ranks. What are some of the ranks within the Bloods? And we can keep it specific to Mad Dogs. What are the ranks within the Mad Dog Bloods? 1 star, 2 star, all the way up to 5 star, and called a low O20 and a high O20 and a GF, Godfather. When you say 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, what are you talking about? What are those positions called? Generals. And the lowest general is a 1 and the highest general is a 5, is that right? Yes. Above the 5, there's another set of positions, is that correct? Yes. And what are those positions called? Low O20, high O20, and GF. I want to be clear, it's low O20? Yes. And then high O20, and then GF on top of that, right? Yes. Okay, now what's a GF? Godfather. And who is the godfather to the set? Solby. As a general matter, what is the position of Godfather? Top dog, he run everything. He got the final say so on whatever. Now, beneath the Godfather, the high, the low, and the generals, are there other people that are within the gang? Yes. And what are those people called? Soldiers. What are some of the other sets of Bloods that you're familiar with? It's a lot you got. Just tell the jury a few of them. 9 trade gangsters, brimstones, stuff like that. Now, when you were in jail right when you came into jail in 03, I guess it was, did you know what the lineup was for the murderous Mad Dog? Not in the jail system at the time, no. How about in 04, did you know what the lineup was? Yes. What was the lineup for the murderous Mad Dog back in 04? Start from the beginning, or you start from the bottom and work your way up? Pistol. What was his hang? 1 star. 1 star general? Yes. Above him? Dino Gambino. Dino Gambino? Yes. 3 star was Frank Matthew. 4 star was Young Gotti. 5 star was Jay Black. Okay, so those 5 generals, and then above them, there's the low O20 and the high O20 and the GF, right? Yes. Is there always only one position filled for each position, or can there be more than one? Except for the low O20 and the high O20. So in the low O20, there can be more than one position? 2. There can be 2. In 04, who was the low O20 for murderous Mad Dogs? Raw and Mad Brazy. When you say Raw, you mean the defendant? Yes. And Mad Brazy. And above them, who is that? Smoke and Freedom. And above them was who? Solby. Solby. Does Solby have another name that you know him by? Swahili name Sindiato. When you say his Swahili name is Sindiato, what do you mean by that? Every Mad Dog got a Swahili name with an Iscaria at the end of it. What's an Iscaria at the end of it? It's Swahili for warrior. So did you know Solby's conventional name? Yes. What was that? Stacy Knight. Now the Mad Dogs, are they known by any other names other than Mad Dog? AKA Frank Matthews. When you say your AKA is Frank Matthews, what do you mean by that? That's another name you know him as. How about other names? Stuff like that, like sometimes call each other Frank's boys. Frank boys? Yeah, that's not really a name, just Frank Matthews. Can you explain to the jury a little bit about how the sets of Bloods interact with one another? Is there a leadership umbrella organization? Yes, you mean like UBN and stuff like that? I don't know, you tell me. UBN is like all different sets under, or a lot of the East Coast sets. UBN is for that. Are you familiar with the term nation? Yes. In the Blood, what's a nation within the Bloods? It's just all the sets, UBN, United Blood Nation. Are there multiple nations within the Bloods? Yes. What are some of the other nations? NYBBA as the Brims, Stone Nation, NYB. And you said NYB. What's NYB stand for? New York Bloods. And what are the other ones you said? NYBBA. NYBBA. What does NYBBA stand for? New York Brim Blood Only. And then you said another one. What was that? Stone Nation. Stone Nation. And were there others? Independence, yes. But the Mad Dogs fall under the United Bloods Nation? Yes. Is there a leadership council within the United Bloods Nation? Yes. All right. Tell the jury a little bit about the leadership council within the United Blood Nation. Basically, a person who run 9 Trade Gangsters would go, he sit at the top of that council. He runs the whole UBN, but he also has a council, different chairmen, that's leaders of other sets that, sorry, go on, that he basically go through, do other things. All right, so you said a name, Magoo. Who's Magoo? Magoo is a guy that runs 9 Trade Gangsters. And he has a position on the United Bloods Nation too? He's the top position. So Magoo has the top position of the UBN? Yes. Are there, like you said, are there other sets represented on the UBN? Yes. What are the other sets represented on the UBN? Like the councilmen and all that? Yes. Diot, Double Nine Gangsters, Soul B, he's Mad Dog, Tankhead, Conrad Militant Blood, and Deadeye. I can't remember the fifth one. Soul B was the leader of the Mad Dogs, at least back then, sat on the leadership council for UBN? Yes. Mr. Winfield, I want to ask you some questions about communications within jail. How do the Bloods communicate within correctional facilities, if you know? Called third-party mail. I'm in one jail, somebody's in another jail. I write to somebody in the street to have them boomerang it to somebody else so it look like it's coming from the street instead of from another correctional facility. What was the term you used there? Boomerang. What does that mean? Me selling it over there, having them accepted it over there. What are some of the sorts of things that you would send through the jail, maybe using a boomerang or a kite if you're a Bloods member? Whatever I wanted to talk about, not specifically, it could be anything. Okay, how about lineups? Did those get sent to the jail? Yes. Tell the jury a little bit about how lineups get sent to the jail. Usually, every 90 days, a person who is in charge of it, they will send what we call worldwides. Worldwides is a paper they send to a lot of big homies or people that's in certain jails. They try to make sure every jail get it at least, like I said, every 90 days. It tells you if any lineups change or if somebody that's food that's in the jail with you or somebody food that's a worldwide plate and they come to your jail, be on the lookout for them, mainly for any changes or something so people can't claim something that they're not. All right, there are a couple of concepts there that you talked about I just want to talk about with you. You use the word food. What does it mean to be food within the Bloods? To be a target. And who are the types of people who are targets within the Bloods? Rats. What's a rat? A snitch. And you said the term plate. What does that term mean? Like you food, like just another word for food, like you a plate? If someone's on a plate or food within the Bloods, what does it mean for them? Like a term like you food, I'm going to eat you, cut you, stab you, whatever. I'm going to ask you some other terms. Are you familiar with the term damu? Yes. What's a damu? Swahili for blood. What about the 5-pointed star? Does that have any significance within the Bloods? Yes, that's a blood symbol. What significance does it have? It's a blood symbol. Are you familiar with the term triple pound? Yes. What's a triple pound? Triple pound is just another word for saying 555. 555 is if I'm in jail. When I say 555, I'm talking about a razor or a knife. If I'm in the street, I'm talking about more than likely a gun. Razor or knife if you're in jail, and on the street it means a gun? Yes. All right, if someone says they're a 2-star Mad Star General, what does that mean? 2-star, they got 2 stars, second position. Do you know what the term Mad Boss means? Yes. What's Mad Boss? Mad Boss is what Mad Dogs call Soul B, Godfather. All right. Are you familiar with the numbers that inmates in state correctional facilities use to identify, or that the prison uses to identify them? Yes. What are those called? DIN numbers. Do you know Sol B's DIN number? Yes. What is it? 9DT2238. All right, if someone says triple O, what does that mean? Reference to blood or something like that. And if someone uses the term 3 burns, what does that mean? 3 burns, that's triple O. You pointed to your arm, what does that mean? Back in the days, people get 3 burns on their right arm to signify that they bled. If somebody spells out the word UBN in a letter, what does it mean in the bloods? Same thing, UBN, you be talking about UBN Nation. Instead of putting initials, I spell it out so it looks like a regular sentence instead of some gang-related term. What's a fake GF, if you know? Fake GF is somebody claiming they godfather and they got status they really don't have. What's the problem claiming you have status when you don't have it within the bloods? Causes confusion, and then when you do that, people don't know you really ain't got that spot. That's the whole point of the World's Wides is for, to eliminate that problem. What's the initials BBA? What does that mean in the bloods? Billy Badass, that's AKA 9 Trey Gangsters. When you say that's AKA for 9 Trey Gangsters, what are you saying? Also known as. What's a ratchet? A gun or a razor, depending on where I'm at. All right, when you say it depends on where you're at, what do you mean? If I'm in the street, it's a gun. If I'm in jail, it's a razor or a knife. Someone uses the term hard white, what does that mean? Crack. Someone says I just got a Miller from the chairman, what is that? Miller is short for Miller Vibe. That's blood lingo. Miller Vibe is like a kite, so instead of saying Miller Vibe, I'm just saying Miller. The other person I'm talking to know what I'm talking. Someone says I got a Miller from the chairman. Who is he or she referring to? Me, any of the people on the chair or council of UBN? Who's the founder of the Mad Dog Bloods? From what I understand, a guy named Rise. Who is OG Mac? That's who started the Bloods on the East Coast. Were the murderous Mad Dog, do the Mad Dogs go by other names? Like murder, do they go by murderous Mad Dogs? Yes. Can you tell the jury how the name changed? Sol B took over, I believe, 1999. We used to just be Mad Dog Bloods, aka Frank Matthew. Sol B took over, he changed it to Murderous Mad Dogs, aka Frank Matthew. Now, in terms of the relationships among Blood members, are they always cordial with one another? Depends. Depends on what? Something's going on, and at the end of the day, if it's beef, it's beef. But for the most part, I try to be cordial with other Bloods, if that's what it calls for. But if it's a problem, I'm going to handle it like you was a Blood. All right, now do people make power plays and for positions within the Bloods? All the time. Can you tell the jury a little bit about a power play that you have knowledge of within the Bloods? One time it was something going on with Magoo and Sol B. Magoo was trying to kick Sol B out. When you say he was trying to kick Sol B out, what do you mean? He labeled him food and he didn't no longer want him to have that top position. Objection. Sidebar. All right, sidebar. Okay, Your Honor, I'll withdraw the question. All right, next question. Mr. Winfield, when did you first learn that Mr. Heron was the low 020 with the murderous Mad Dog Bloods? 2004. You have to. Around 2004. Thank you. How is it that you learned it? Worldwide. What's that? From Worldwides, and I was with. When you say the Worldwide, what are you talking about? Paperwork from different lineups. Did you receive a lineup that indicated he was the low 020 for the murderous Mad Dog Bloods? Not at the time, but I was with another ranking member of the Mad Dogs that told me. Okay, now while you were in jail on this case, did you have an opportunity to see and speak with Mr. Heron? Yes. Can you explain to the jury how it is that you came to have a conversation with Ronald Heron? 2006, I was leaving the box going to Elmira Correctional Facility. If I recall, he was leaving out of the back going to Southport, and they in the same hub, and we was on the bus together as well as transit together. Sorry, just to clarify, you said you were leaving the box. What are you talking about? Solitary confinement. All right, and where were you headed? I was headed to Elmira. And you said you were being transported. Could you tell the jury about that? Going into jail, we was placed in a holdover jail in Auburn Correctional Facility for the weekend because it was a Friday and Monday was a holiday, so we wouldn't have been able to leave until Tuesday. All right, and approximately when was this again? 2006. And what happened when you got to the holdover facility in Auburn? I had an altercation with the porter. When you say you had an altercation with a porter, what are you talking about? I had a fight with him. How did you come to have a fight with a porter at the Auburn location 2006? Officers let us fight because he was working down there and me and him had words at jail. Officers like like that. So what they do is they'll let you fight, but then tell you it don't matter. You win, lose, draw, or whatever. You're not going to medical for any medical attention. If I let you fight and you want to fight and not get in trouble for it. And that's what happened. The porter you were talking about, he was an inmate in the prison? Yes. How is it that you came to have an interaction with the porter? Because he works on transit. We all locked in for no matter how long we there. He works, he feeds us, he cleans up the tiers, stuff like that. He pass stuff, do whatever we need, but that's his job assignment. Can you just describe the facility that you were located in Auburn, like the actual layout of the cells? As soon as you walk in a company, I believe it's 50-something cells straight across. Cells is on the right. All the way in the back, we call them the fish tanks. That's a lot of people that's in the box, or they got somebody with some type of mental illness. They'll put them in the fish tank because those got plexiglass. How is it you came to be in a fight? He opened my cell and let us fight. Talk us through that. What exactly happened? Me and him had words. He said, I'll get the cell open. I said, all right, go ahead. And he really went and got the officer, and the officer let us step in front of the company. Like 3 officers was right there, and they let us know, regardless of what the outcome is, you're not going to medical. So if you don't want to do this, go back in your cell, and he allowed us to fight. What happened in the fight? Did you win? Yes. What happened to the guy? Officer sent him back to his cell. And what happened to you as a result? He let me do his job for the weekend. And was this a significant thing for you? Yes, of course. Why was it significant? I was locked in. I didn't want to be locked in all week. So what did you do? His job. I gave out food, cleaned up, was able to move around a little bit for a couple of days. Did you see the defendant after that? Yeah, he was in the fish tank all the way in the back. And for the next couple of days, what did you do? Everything. Talked to him, passed stuff. That's about it. While you were there, you had some conversations with the defendant? Yes. Can you tell the jury a little bit about the conversations you had with the defendant at that time? Basically, let me know he going home 2007 in the summertime. I was supposed to go home right after that in November. He was filling me out, seeing what I wanted to go back out there and do, like that. When you say filling you out, talking about seeing what you wanted to do, what are you talking about? Basically seeing if I wanted to come out there and mess with him. When you say mess with him, what are you talking about? Be on his team. When you say mess with him, what are you talking about? Be on his team. When you say be on his team, what are we talking about? Sell drugs for him, whatever I need to do to play my position. All right, what did you understand that your position on the team, or what did you understand the team was going to do when you got out of jail? Get money. What's that? Get money. Get money. And get money where? In Gowanus. And doing what? Leadership, selling drugs, whatever. Did you have any conversation with Mr. Heron about the status of the drug dealing in the Gowanus at that time? Briefly. What did you talk about? Basically, there's nobody out there no more. Bam, Crom, all of them gone. What happened to Bam, Crom, and all of them that were all gone? They got locked up. And why is that significant to someone who is talking about going back to the Gowanus to sell crack cocaine? Somebody like him to see it as an opportunity. Objection for him to take over. Sustained on that. The jury will disregard the answer. Did you have an understanding of why that was significant to Mr. Heron? Objection again. Yes or no, I'll overrule the objection on a general basis. Did you have an understanding of whether that was significant to Mr. Heron? Yes. And what was your understanding? Open market. What do you mean by open market? Easier to take over, nobody there, no real competition that he feels is a threat. When you're using the term real competition, what are you talking about? No other people that's selling drugs and got guanas in the grip to the point where it's going to be hard for somebody to come over there and take over. You used the term got guanas in their grip. What do you mean by that? Control. And how do you control the drug sales in a neighborhood like guanas? Violence. What, if anything, did you tell Mr. Heron about your intentions when you returned to the streets of New York? I wanted to mess with him. Now, Mr. Winfield, while you were in jail, did you behave yourself? No. You got in a lot of trouble? Yes. Tell the jury a little bit about the things that you did while you were in jail on that bid. A lot of stabbings and cuttings. Most of the tickets I got in trouble with was for either stabbing or cutting somebody. What about drugs? Drugs too. When you say drugs too, what do you mean? What were you doing? Get drugs, selling, smoking it, get dirty urines. Did you have some problems with your bunkmates? Yes. Tell the jury about the problem that you had with one of your bunkmates. Also, in 2006, I went to Marcy Box. I had a bunkie I really wasn't that cool with. I didn't really care about him. He was annoying, disrespectful, and dirty, so I wanted to get closer to Feo. He had a lot of tobacco with him. I wanted to get closer to Feo. Feo was on the other side of the jail. Flooded our cell, thinking it was going to get me closer. It didn't work. He kept being too disrespectful and dirty, and I got tired of it, and I beat him up. And as a result, did your bunkie get moved out? Yes. And at some point, did you see the guy that you just called Feo in jail? Yes. Where do you see him? That worked, and I got closer to Feo, and I was able to see him. What prison were you in? Marcy Box. In the Marcy Box, did you have any conversations with Feo about what it is that you intended to do when you came back to the guanas? Yes. Tell the jury a little bit about those conversations. Basically, just let him know, like I had told him about the run-in me and Ra had, and being that we knew each other for so long, it's only right we go out there and mess with each other again. At the time, Feo wanted to turn Mad Dog. All these years he'd been around him, he was never blood, never was nothing, so he wanted to be turned Mad Dog. Did Feo turn Mad Dog at that time? No. Did you learn that he turned Mad Dog later at a certain point in time? Yes. How is it that you learned Feo turned Mad Dog later on? Towards the end of my bid, after Ra and Feo went home, Ra wrote me and told me that Feo is with us now. When you say Feo is with us now, what is your understanding of what that meant? He's Mad Dog. How did you learn about it? Ra wrote me and told me. All right, now at a certain point, did you learn that Mr. Heron had left the prison? Yes. And did you continue your conversations with Mr. Heron while you were in jail? A couple times, yes. A couple times. How is it that you had conversation with Mr. Heron while he was in jail and you were on the outside? Sent me 2 or 3 letters at the most and 3 ways. I used to call him on 3 ways. Could you tell the jury a little bit about those conversations that you had with him while you were in jail? Regular conversations. It wasn't nothing incriminating. The phones is wired and tapped. We wasn't talking about nothing. But you guys were keeping in touch? Yes. Now, at a certain point, Mr. Winfield, did there come a time when you were released from jail? Yes. When was that? July 26, 2008. Where were you released from jail from? Fort Greene. Before you got to Fort Greene, what jail did you get let out of? Sing Sing Correctional Facility. How'd you get home? Metro North. And where'd you go? Home. To Fort Greene? Yes. After you got to Fort Greene, what did you do next? That day? Yeah, what did you do next after you got home? Chill with my family, drink, smoke, ate. At a certain point, did you start committing crimes again? Yes. Tell the jury how you started committing crimes again. About 2, 3 days later, I came home to nothing, so the dude I was cool with in Fort Greene, he just started selling drugs. He pulled me out in the hallway and let me know I ain't got no money. I just started selling drugs and I'm only buying grams. I can't give you none, so what I'll do is I'll give you $30 and just do what you do with that. Do what you want to do. He gave me $30 and told me the way he be selling drugs out of Fort Greene. And how's you sell those drugs? How'd you go about doing it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I'm sorry, you want that answer? I didn't hear who he was talking about. Can you clarify that as to who he was discussing this with? I was talking about a friend in Fort Greene. Just wait for the lawyer. Who did you get drugs from when you came home and were in Fort Greene? The person I was acquaintance with named Jay. Jay in Fort Greene? Yes. Where did you sell those drugs? In Fort Greene. Did you sell them in other places? Later on. Okay, later on. Did you also commit other crimes when you came home? Yes. What did you do? Robbed a couple people. And what did you rob them of? Drugs. And did you sell those drugs? Yes. Where did you sell those drugs? In Fort Greene and sometimes in 198. And when you say sometimes in 198, what do you mean? I had a curfew from parole, so I wouldn't stay out in Gowanus late most of the time. You didn't want to get caught by the parole officer being out of your neighborhood? At a certain point, I'm sorry, there was no answer. Was that a yes to the last question? You nodded yes, but he didn't say yes. You didn't want to sell out of your neighborhood because you were worried you were going to get in trouble with your parole officer? Yes. Mr. Winfield, if you could sit up and put the microphone closer to your mouth, it would be helpful for everybody to hear you. Now, at a certain point after you were home, did you come to see the defendant again? Yes. All right, tell the jury how it is that you came in contact with the defendant again after you came home. He saw me walking in Fort Greene. He heard I was home, took... Objection. Sustained as to he heard I was home. Mr. Winfield, did you have a conversation with Mr. Heron? Yes. Did he tell you that he had heard you were home? No, I assumed it. Okay, you assumed it. Okay, so tell the jury what happened when you met Mr. Heron. Just had regular conversations. He was really letting me know, basically, like, don't rush into things. You out here. You just came out here. He wasn't on parole. I was. To take things one day at a time. Take it slow. Don't rush it. Everything was going to fall into place sooner or later. When you talk about fall into place soon or later, what is it that you're talking about? I assumed he was talking about... Objection. Sustained. What did you understand him to mean when he said things were going to fall into place later? That things was going to pick up, meaning money was going to come in. I was going to find a place wherever I fit in at and do what needs to be done. And when you say find a place where you could fit in at, what is it that you were going to fit in at? Basically, he wanted to see if he could use me to sell drugs. That was basically it. And did he discuss a particular role with you at that time? No. Where did you guys go, or what did you do after that? Went and bought me some boots, some sneakers, regular stuff, ain't nothing important. At some point, did you meet somebody named Moose? Yes. When did you meet Moose, and was with Mr. Heron with you? Yes. Tell the jury about how you met Moose and Heron after that. I can't remember the exact date or nothing, but that was his people. Being that he's also a mad dog and he was on the team, he introduced me to Moose. Did you have conversations with Moose and Mr. Heron? Yes. What happened? Gave me drugs to sell. Basically, that was going to be my position, to sell drugs in 198. And did you try to sell drugs in 198? Yes. What happened? It wasn't for me. What do you mean it wasn't for you? Kept fucking up bread. I ain't had the patience to sit in a building all day and shit like that. I didn't like it. Did you talk about that with Mr. Heron? Yeah, eventually. What did you tell him? I ain't really tell him nothing. He was letting me know, like, yo, we gotta find something for you to do. Every time I turn around, I'm not where I'm supposed to be and shit like that. Did your relationship with Mr. Heron or your position working for Mr. Heron change? Yes. How did it change? Eventually, it turned into me being pistol with him all the time. What do you mean by pistol? If he needed me to go somewhere with him or do something with him, simple shit like barbershop, I got the gun, making sure he's in there, he's safe. Like a bodyguard? You can call it that, yes.